UNESCO also refused to participate in the function organized in Hanoi by the Vietnamese government. UNESCO also informed the Vietnamese embassy in Paris that no representative of the French government or of the municipal government in Paris would participate. In the end, it only agreed to let the embassy rent a room in its Trocadero headquarters, with the proviso that no Ho Chi Minh picture would be exhibited in the hallways or any other propaganda material mentioning Ho.
The hagiographies written in Hanoi about Ho Chi Minh are so filled with fictions that one cannot possibly go into all of them. For instance, at one time, it is said that his intelligence is far superior to most persons because he had 4 irises.
Then it is claimed that he was a child prodigy, teaching everything from math to science and French and Chinese, even martial arts and physical education, at a school in Phan Thiet, introducing his younger charges to the ideas of Voltaire, Montesquieu, and Rousseau. Beside the fact that the school was almost non-existent, this claim on the part of Ho is hardly credible in view of his own testimony. In the Vietnamese version of Anecdotes in the Active Life of President Ho Chi Minh, page 46, to the effect that 9 years later, he was still very weak in French.
From this place he has gone out is a famous story of how Ho, then 19, stood on the Nha Rong Pier in Saigon and decided to hire himself out as a good worker on a French merchant marine boat under the name of Ba, third brother, and determined to go out into the world seeking for ways to save the country from French domination. He was hired as a kitchen helper on June 2nd, 1911.
Ho Chi Minh left Vietnam and arrived in France on July 15, 1911. 2 months later, on September, he wrote 2 letters asking that he be admitted to the colonial school, hoping to become useful to France with regard to my compatriots, and at the same time to enable them to profit from instruction. From that evidence, it is clear that he did not yet have any idea of revolution or the idea of getting rid of the French. After that, there were a couple of letters that he wrote to his brother, Nguyen Sinh Him, asking for money, and to the French resident in Hue, asking that he had had his father looked up so that he could give him some money and reinstate him as a Mandarin. But the French did not respond.
Well, Ho Chi Minh in 1911 did something very special and very clear. He wrote 2 letters. We have 2 letters of Ho Chi Minh written on September 15th, 1911, from Marseille, one to the Minister of Colonies, the second one to the President of the Republic. And they're signed Nguyen Thuc Thanh in both places, which is his real name. Said he was born in Vinh in 1892, the son of Nguyen Sinh Huy, which is the record. And in these 2 letters, he asked to enter the colonial school of the French. He wants to become a servant, a participant in French colonialism in Vietnam.
By the end of 1918, World War I was over. A new world seems to open up with President Wilson proclaiming his 14 points, one of which called for the self-determination of people. Even in Vietnam, French Governor General Albert Sarraut also promised that the Vietnamese people would soon see a perceptible expansion of their political rights. Encouraged and strengthened by such trends, a group of Vietnamese patriots known as the Five Dragons, Ngũ Long, decided to submit to the Versailles Peace Treaty Conference an 8-point petition entitled Revendication du peuple annamite, Demands of the Vietnamese People.
A fairly moderate document, the demands only ask for political autonomy for the Vietnamese, coupled with the traditional democratic freedoms such as the freedoms of association, religion, press and movement, amnesty for political prisoners, equal rights for the Vietnamese with the French in Vietnam, and the abolition of forced labor, and the hated taxes on salts, opium, and alcohol.
Signed by Nguyen Ai Quoc, a pseudonym meaning Nguyen the Patriot, it was in fact a collaborative effort of the lawyer Phan Van Trung and the famous nationalist Phan Chu Trinh, assisted by the young Nguyen Tat Thanh, later Ho Chi Minh, who volunteered to go and present the petition to the Versailles Conference. Later, Ho Chi Minh, under the pseudonym of Tran Gian Tien, claimed that he had been the author, even though he admitted, according to Droiker, that Phan Van Trung had helped him to draft it in intelligible French. This is clearly a travesty sin.
Nguyễn Ái Quốc là tên chung của nhiều nhà ái quốc.
Nguyen Ai Quoc was the common pen name of a number of Vietnamese patriots in France at the time. Among this group were the Nguyen Te Duyen, Phan Van Jun, Phan Ju Jin. Ho was then a fresh arrival in France, a young man with no political record for the French Sûreté to worry about. That is why the other older men let him be the front man and sign the documents or articles which they wrote or drafted, individually or collectively. Even Ho himself admitted as much when, under the pen name of Tran Gian Tien, he wrote the anecdotes on the active life of President Ho Chi Minh on page 46, as follows. Nguyen did not have enough French at the time, so he had insistently pleaded with Mr. Phan Van Jun to write on his behalf. Mr. Jun was an excellent writer in French, but did not wish to sign these documents. That is why Nguyen had to sign those articles.
One of Ho Chi Minh's main claims to being a poet, and a poet in Chinese to boot, is based on a collection of poetry which was totally unknown before 1960, when, for the first time, it was revealed to be a work written nearly 20 years earlier by Ho himself, while he was being incarcerated in a series of Kuomingtang jails in southern China. The circumstances surrounding this discovery have never been explained satisfactorily. For instance, the manuscript of the prison diary, which was attributed to Ho, shows on the cover the following dates: 29 of August 1932 through 10 of September 1933. Ho Chi Minh, however, did not get arrested by Chiang Kai-shek's troops until 10 years later in 1942, and was later released over a year later in September 1943. The first author to bring out this discrepancy is no other than Professor Dang Tai Mai, the father-in-law of General Vo Nguyen Giap.
Other persons who have had a chance to study the collection also have reservations about Ho's authorship of the work. Professor Le Hu Muk, a scholar of classical literature and an expert in Chinese, some years ago wrote a book, Ho Chi Minh is not the author of the prison diary. Because of his tight and well-argued reasoning, the book really caused a stir in Hanoi, and a spate of the very best scholars were ordered to refute Professor Muk's arguments. Other authors have studied the question as well, and most are in agreement with Professor Muk.
The Soviet